Wow, it's a long walk to the center of the stage. Hello, everyone. Okay, this is me every time I have to begin an innovation project. Yes, I am an innovator, but every time I have to begin an innovation project, I am a scared cat. Even though I've innovated time and time again, I'm scared. Why? Because we are all ingrained to think that innovation is this very big word, reserved for special geniuses with a talent and a knack for medicine and technology and creativity. But I'm here to tell you that I bring myself back to my senses and I realize it's not about that. It isn't about some great special knowledge and great special talent. It's all about practice. It's all about not things you don't know, but it's all about things you do know. And that's the great thing about innovation. What it is, it's about connecting the red threads. It's about connecting everything you know. It's just seeing the things you know in new and different ways. That's why I call it red thread thinking. Where does red thread thinking come from? Well, here's what happens. Actually, I'm looking for the water. If I could get some water, please. Here's what it's based on. There's an ancient Asian legend. When you're born, a god comes down from the sky. And what happens is he has a bag of red threads behind them, and he connects it to your ankle. And he connects that red thread to the ankle of all the people you're going to meet in your life. And those are all the connections you're going to make. Well, the same thing happens with ideas. All these ideas in your head, all the things you observe throughout your life, all the things you see, those are all the connections you can make. And that's where innovations come from. Actually, thank you very much. Innovations are really about connecting the things you know in new ways. So I'm going to tell you about my first big innovation project. Back in the day, that's when clients still made you sign these really deep confidentiality agreements. So I can't actually mention the name, but you might recognize it from the bottles. This is now one of the #1 selling shampoo lines in the world. I started this project back in the very early 1990s. The company didn't have much money to spend on advertising then. Shampoo products, by the way, have a 90-10 advertising to sale ratio. It was back in Germany. It was a new shampoo line. They wanted to come up with a new shampoo line. I didn't know what to do. But in the back of my mind, I remembered, by the way, the #1 thing for shampoos is shine. Women want their hair to shine. And I remembered that in plastic surgeons' offices, please don't ask me why I'm always paying attention to plastic surgeons' offices. Back in plastic surgeons' offices, they were doing something called a peel on women's faces to make their faces glow. And that peel was being done with alpha hydroxy acid. Alpha hydroxy acid comes from malic acid, which comes from apples. Apples are something very natural. And in Germany at the time, the Green Party was growing, right? And which is also natural. Apple is green, green is natural. People were more interested in natural products back in the 90s. The Green Party was growing. You see how things work? I was making all these crazy connections all at the same time. And I went to my client and I said, why don't we put alpha hydroxy in it? Why don't we put apple acid in it to make hair shine better? My client said, you're crazy. That will change the pH of the shampoo. That's not good for hair. I said, wait a minute. I went to universities. We figured out how we could balance the pH so it would be proper. And guess what happened? When we put it in the shampoo, we found out that the sugar from the apple acid actually made the hair shaft stronger. So not only did we have this wonderful marketing idea, we also actually had a shampoo that made the hair shaft stronger. So a virtually much better shampoo than all the other shampoos out there. Then, at that time, there was nobody on the shelf with this, what I call an ugly green bottle, so it really made it stand out on the shelf. But we still didn't have any money for advertising. So we painted buses this horrendous color green. We took them to college campuses. We gave free wash and dries, and it became an immediate sensation with college kids. And that's how it really started to grow. It was enormously successful. We took it to France. We took it to Italy, and then 12 years later, they brought it to the United States with an enormous marketing budget, and today it's one of the top-selling shampoos. No high technology, one little idea, all these little red threads tied together, and that's how we did it. Okay, Neil Greemer. Neil Greemer, I love Neil Greemer. His little girl, he was trying to get the baby food from the bottle into his daughter's mouth. What he noticed was more food was getting around her mouth than into her mouth. That was a big problem. What did he do? He took a pouch, he stuck a squirter gun, he put a squirt on it, and all of a sudden, the food was getting into the baby's mouth. Guess what? That was in 2007. Today, 1/5 of all the baby food in the United States is now in squirter bottles, 1/5. He sold his company 5 years later to Campbell's Soup for $93 million. No technology, just solving a problem. How many people have ever swerved their car when they were trying to get the change out from in between when it was falling down? That's what two guys had a problem with. So they took a little piece of cardboard and put it in between the seats between their car. Then they changed it into neoprene and created Drop Stop. Drop Stop has sold millions and millions in the United States. Have you noticed anything here? You don't need big technology. You don't need major science. All you need is to look at how you can solve some problems. And that's how you can create great innovation. And I'm going to tell you something else. Major innovation is not brought to you by big industries. MIT's Eric von Hippel has said 2 to 3 times more innovation is done by individuals than by big industry. So it's here for your taking and for your doing. All it takes is a little bit of confidence. What you have to do is break the fear of paralysis, of not wanting to do it. What you have to do is just persevere and break your way through it. That's exactly what I do every time I have a new innovation project, and I'm afraid. I know now that I will find that answer. I know that it comes from a lot of trial and error, and I just have to be bold and brazen and work my way through it. Now, here are a few tips that I'm going to give you on how to do it. The first thing I'm going to tell you is stop brainstorming. You heard from Tom Kelly that it doesn't happen inside a room. It really doesn't. Don't get all your folks inside a room and say, hey, we're going to come up with ideas. Now, there's a real reason why brainstorming doesn't work. If you put everybody in a room with a lot of, and say, let's come up with ideas, what happens is they clam up. No one wants to be in a room having to come up with ideas because you feel afraid. You say, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to produce in front of all these people. And that's exactly what happens. The other thing is, that's not when your ideas come to you. When my ideas come to me, I'm walking in the park. I'm doing the laundry. Isn't that when your ideas come to you? When there is a time for brainstorming, though. I don't want to say never brainstorm, and that's when there is already a germ of an idea. That's the time to really talk to people. Hey, how do I make this better? How do I improve this? That's the time to bring other people together. Now, one of the ways to really, how do you find new ideas? Well, there are 2 really good ways. As I said, there are two really good ways to really think about new ideas, and one of those is walks in the park, let your mind be at rest, because it's when your mind is at rest that all those red threads start to tie together. There's another way to prepare your brain, which is really, really interesting. Do new things. Learn a new language. Learn how to dance. Because what happens when you do those things, it starts to open up circuitry in your brain that you haven't learned before, that you haven't done before. And it opens all these new circuits in your brain that are newer and different. What else can you do? Well, as I said, you already know the new ideas that are going to bring you innovation. So looking back is the new forward. The past is the best way to find new ideas. So if you're in a company, look at all your existing assets. Ask new questions of those assets. For example, don't ask, how can I build a better mousetrap? Ask, how can I keep the mice out of the house? Look at the assets that you have and ask, how can I deploy those in a new way? Look at other industries. What are they using their assets for? How can I use those assets in a different way? So the best innovation is already based what's already there. And I'll give you an example. The Gutenberg press, for example, changed the world forever. Do you know that that was not based on one new thing? For example, Chinese type was one of the foundations of it. That was 500 years before Gutenberg was born. He lived in Rhineland, which was the vintner's presses, and he was a metallurgist, which was the wiring. So there was not one new thing in it. Again, innovation's all about how you mix up what you already know. Observe culture. You heard Tom talk a lot about that. You know, asking the questions, watching what people do. Everybody jerry-rigs everything. You jerry-rig things. You create a new recipe to help get your kids eat. You might spice up a car to attract new girls. All of those things are how people live, and you can make it better for them. One of my things that I did was on a project that I did, and here we are in Belgium, in the heart of the chocolate world. Well, in the United States, chocolate people for 100 years thought milk chocolate and dark chocolate were just different flavors. When my clients asked me to look at the chocolate industry, it was a pretty closed industry. And I said, what am I going to do here? So I just took a bunch of people to a food store. And I just didn't know whether they liked milk chocolate or dark chocolate or what. And I released them in the food store. And I just said, go. And what happened? Well, there was a bunch of people who went to ice cream and cheeses and things like that. And then there was another bunch of people who went to coffees and spices and exotic foods. And then when I sat down and talked to them after that, what did I find out? Well, I found out that those who went to ice cream and cheeses, they were all milk chocolate lovers. And those who went to exotic foods and spices, they were all dark chocolate lovers. Well, I was really onto something here, because the ice cream and cheese is a very textural event that really happens in your mouth. But the spices and exotic coffees and things like that, that's something that's much more discerning. That's something that's much more sophisticated. That wasn't about what was happening in the mouth. And as we began to understand and really experience what they were experiencing, we found out that for milk chocolate lovers, their whole chocolate experience was everything that happened in the mouth. The anticipation of eating a piece of chocolate, for them, was the same anticipation as the dark chocolate people. But it was all here. I eat a piece of milk chocolate, and it's all in the mouth, and it goes down, and it brings me back to my childhood. But then once they were finished eating the chocolate, they wanted another piece. The dark chocolate people, the anticipation was exactly the same as the milk chocolate people. But the eat, that wasn't so important. But it was the afterglow of how they felt. Once the eat was over, they weren't wanting another piece. My favorite consumer quote was, "I eat a piece of dark chocolate and I love my boyfriend more." It was the whole afterglow. It was the whole experience, the whole discernment of dark chocolate. So these weren't just flavor preferences. These were entire cultural differences. So if you're going to have entire cultural differences, why would you create an almond milk and an almond dark? No, what we had to do, and we knew what we had to do, was we had to create mouth textures for milk chocolate people and entire flavor discernment experiences. So look to what you'll be seeing in the future to create those those differences in the mouth. Why milk chocolate only? Why not cream chocolate? Why not, butter chocolate that really is going to enhance the time in the mouth? And if it's all about the mental experience of dark chocolate, why not something more? So it will take my client time to gear up for these things, but look for in 2018 an entirely different way of thinking about chocolate in the United States. Now, of course, Europe is a much more milk chocolate culture than the US, but that is kind of where we're going to be. And again, that only came from truly observing people. Now, how do you hone your observation skills? Well, let me give you an example here from Mr. SpongeBob. Okay, so two people are walking in a forest, and a burr falls on their sweaters. So one person takes the burr and goes, "Ugh, a burr! I can't stand that burr. Look what it's done to my sweater. It's created these horrible things in my sweater." That's not a very good observer of culture or anything like that. The other person goes, "Look, a burr. Isn't that interesting? How did this burr stick to my shirt? Wow, I really find that interesting." And that person goes on and invents Velcro. That's the difference between the two people. Now, when you're observing things, I do want to caution you, because there's always a good and bad to observation. So when you're observing things, I do want to caution you about one thing. I want you to stay away from trend seduction. Sometimes we look at things that are trends, like the green tea trend or something like that, and that's very bad, okay? Trends are something that's here, they're ephemeral, they're only here in time. Don't try and build your business around trends, because especially if you're a smaller company, it's going to take you, you're not going to get into market usually fast enough. There's probably going to be way too many people in there. You don't have enough advertising dollars to do it. And so kind of stay away from that. Look for something that's really deep and underlying in the culture, that's something really meaningful in the culture, rather than running after trends. The other thing, really, and you've heard this also today, keep it simple. What you see is what you get. You need to boil it down to its most simple state. I love the Olympics because here they can talk about every single sport, where the bathrooms are, how you eat, in a simple icon. I love icons because they can talk in universal languages. There's nothing more simple than I heart New York, right? I love New York. It's universal. Everyone in the world understands it. So keep everything as simple as you possibly can. And most importantly, everyone can do this. Yes, you can. It just takes passion. It takes perseverance. The longer, it's all about trial and error, and you absolutely can stick to it. And the best entrepreneurs who can do it, what they do is they switch and they pivot. When you see it's not going exactly right, that's all you have to do, is you can say, okay, this isn't going exactly in my direction, so just do a little switch, do a little pivoting, and you can do it. And that's what innovation's really all about. And I thank you.